So what a week, huh? We, or rather, the United States elected a new president, um, and there has been pretty much a general sense in the media and in pretty much everybody's opinion that this was a racist statement by white America to elect Donald Trump. When quite actually, it's more a socio-economic factor that has contributed to his election. Um, and it is very clear that he lost the Rust Belt states where people have been left behind, so to speak, economically over the past several decades in some sense. And after the big crash in the depression of 2008, they clearly have not gotten any relief in some sense, or their condition has not been alleviated, even though the economy has prospered quite a lot. Um, so, I mean, it is very clear that this election was an election in which an outsider, a candidate who was not part of the establishment, was preferred over somebody who was part of the establishment, and uh, uh, but yet, it's been the general rhetoric that our man Donald Trump was elected because of white America asserting its white supremacy. While I do not like Donald Trump, I think that he's a buffoon. I really am not sure what exactly his policies are going to be, and uh, I'm 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 really scared by the fact that he has anointed or raised up Steve Bannon to the exalted state of Karl Rove in the old days of the Bush administration. And he was supposedly going to appoint Ben Carson as Secretary of Education, but today I read a news saying that Ben Carson has declined to take a role, which might be a relief, but till we figure out who he replaces that appointment with, in some sense. And we also know that he is appointing an oil executive, um, or rather an oil lobbyist for the oil group, to the EPA, who has been known to make to deny the reality of climate change. Um, so we can expect a lot of good things, quote unquote, like the Keystone Pipeline and more offshore drilling or even fracking or something else that. But what I also find troubling is the reaction in the media and comments by commentators like Van Jones on CNN, who said that this is a whitelash by America. Uh, I found that statement to be deeply offensive, and clearly racist in my opinion. He's basically saying that all the white people of America gathered together and voted Donald Trump in, when the data really suggests that Democrats just did not come out to vote on election day. In fact, Michael Moore was saying on some channel, some news program, where he was saying that about 100,000 people in Michigan came out to vote for the Senate and other races, but chose not to choose between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton did not lose by much in that particular state. I'm willing to bet that some of them are Republicans as well, but I'm also willing to bet that quite a lot of them were Democrats. She lost about 6 to 10 million voters who voted for President Obama, and this is quite clearly a case of people just did not like having to choose between these two ugly candidates. Um, and they chose not to vote. That's basically what happened, in my opinion. And saying that this is a whitelash is an incredibly incendiary statement, and I, I'm aghast that such racist rhetoric is allowed in this country, where the rhetoric of Donald Trump is rightly decreed. Um, and I feel that we are in deep trouble if we do not recognize these two extremes and we do not stop these two extremes from happening. So as usual, I was watching something on YouTube, something about the election, something, somebody was making some statements. The reason why I got to this video is because somebody was saying that, hey, look at this writer who is who tells a man who is mansplaining stuff to her what it really means and blah blah, some bullshit like that, some feminist bullshit like that. So I checked out the video and I wanted to have an open mind, and you will see that there are two extremes here, and there are two ridiculous extremes, and I'll try to show both of them to you. And the video in some sense starts off by this reporter asking a very simple question. Let's take a listen.
Black president will be followed by a president who's endorsed by the KKK, Bob. Where does that leave you?
Could you pick some? I can't imagine anybody more marginal to American elections than the KKK.
That's actually true. The KKK has a membership of a few thousand at this point in history. They are not a group which has a lot of power. They have a lot of name recognition. That is true. Lots of people know who and what the KKK were. But in this point of history, they really, really do not have any power in American politics. So he's correct in saying that.
I mean, every 4 years a KKK comes up because people like Hillary Clinton want to bring the KKK up.
So it doesn't shock you, it doesn't horrify you. They're holding a rally in December to celebrate his victory.
Yeah.
How many people were in that fucking rally?
And so are probably the Knights of Columbus. Now, why don't you talk about the Knights of Columbus?
Who the fuck is the Knights of Columbus?
Maybe you don't even know what the Knights of Columbus are.
Another extremist group?
It's the largest Catholic organization of Catholic males in the country.
Yeah, another extremist group, basically.
Let me just point out to you, it's inappropriate to talk about the KKK in the same sentence as Donald Trump or any Republican. They're utterly marginal. They wouldn't even exist if it weren't for every 4 years you trot them out.
Jim Manda.
I do kind of agree with him. They are a marginal group. They really don't have a lot of power, and I just feel that they just being used as a straw man to say that, hey, Donald Trump is a racist and bigot, and look who endorses him. Sure, I mean the KKK probably endorses any white man to the office of the president, but they are not a group which would have resulted in millions of people voting for Donald Trump.
Go ahead, let me hear what you have to say about.
Shut the fuck up, man. Just let us speak
About that.
I find it really interesting. There seems to be a refusal to accept reality. So she's a
reality. Okay,
the
good.
question about the KKK, and it hasn't been engaged with, and instead we're being told that there's this other group called the Knights of St. Whoever. The point is
He definitely addressed that point. He said that they are a marginal group who don't have any power, so it doesn't make sense to talk about them, and that is definitely true. But his attitude towards this conversation doesn't really help him a lot, in my opinion.
KKK exists. The KKK endorsed Donald Trump.
Sure.
The KKK stands for white supremacy, and that has to be acknowledged. That has to be pushed back on.
Is there nothing on the campaign trail that he said about race that hit you?
Yeah.
Did you worry about any of it?
No, in fact, you people keep magnifying it. The left in America and the left in Great Britain keeps magnifying.
It's not I mean, that I do disagree with. Donald Trump was very clearly he used racist rhetoric for his campaign. He began his campaign by saying Mexicans are rapists, and he wants to build a wall and blah blah blah. So his entire campaign has been filled with racist rhetoric, and that is something that is true. whether you like it or not. That is true.
Right, but he talked about a lot of other things, and those things should get
And
through
that is
too.
possible.
This is
If you have a
ridiculous.
fifth
Name one, you motherfucker.
of Latinos or Hispanics voting for Trump all the same, maybe race wasn't an issue, even to the
I
people
find
he
that
talked.
That is true, actually. 1/3 of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump. But you should realize also that Hispanics doesn't mean Mexicans. Hispanics means people of Spanish origin or who speak the Spanish language in some sense. So it includes everybody in Latin America, all the Cubans, all the Puerto Ricans, all the all the Argentinians, all the Chileans who are in America. And quite honestly, Mexicans have been known to be very conservative, or rather, Hispanics have been known to be very conservative. And Cubans, especially in Florida, tend to vote Republican far more than Democrat, for obvious reasons, right? And so yeah, I mean, you cannot really make the argument that just because he was against Mexicans, all Hispanics would have voted Democrat. That doesn't happen. That doesn't translate that well because Hispanics are not Mexicans, or rather, Mexicans doesn't comprise all of Hispanics in some sense. So it's also a terrible argument to say that, hey, just because 30% of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump, he's not a racist candidate. His rhetoric was racist. I mean, he was racist against Mexicans. He was racist against black people. A little bit, yep. I mean, he threw out that black guy in this last rally. That was pretty interesting because he thought he was a protester. Yeah, I mean, but he wasn't racist against every single ethnic group. In fact, the Indian Americans had a Donald Trump rally of sorts in New Jersey, I believe, and he also made an ad where he tried to speak Hindi to appeal to Indian Americans. So quite clearly, he has very specific ideas. So Donald Trump has been trying to say that he's against illegal immigration, and he finds the problem of illegal immigration a huge issue, which has had racist connotations. The way he has brought up that issue has been a little racist. So please continue.
Argument to be very troubling. The idea somehow that if Hispanic or even any people of color vote for somebody who's racist, it means he's not racist. I mean, every system of oppression has people who are in the group of the oppressed who somehow contribute to that oppression. So it's not even a valid argument.
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a valid argument, but that's neither here nor there. I think around 45 or 46% of white people did not vote for Donald Trump. Doesn't mean that he's not racist. That doesn't mean that he's not a white supremacist. I mean, according to your argument, he has a white supremacy tinge to his campaign. So it makes no sense to me. It's neither here nor there, in my opinion.
That because Hispanics voted for him, therefore. I think what we should do is look at Trump for who Trump has told us and shown us that he is. So let's look at what he said on the campaign trail. That's really because the only way we can judge the kind of president he will be is based on the campaign that he ran.
But maybe.
Okay. This is a little difficult for me to understand. Let's look at what Donald Trump has said and done over many years, right? He was pro-choice, now is pro-life. On his campaign, he has said many idiotic things. We are not. I honestly am not sure what exactly he's going to do as president, and that's the uncertainty that I am not completely sure about how to deal with in some sense. I firmly believe that the Republican Party will try to take over his presidency. Like, they got Ryan Priebus as chief of staff. They got Steve Bannon in the White House. They got Rudy Giuliani. I don't know what position he's going to have in the Donald Trump administration, but I firmly believe that there are definitely going to be more and more of these established Republicans who are going to try and get meteor roles in the Donald Trump administration. So I firmly believe that this is going to be a very, very Republican administration, which is going to be very corporate, which is going to be very pro Wall Street. It's not going to help those people who voted for Donald Trump, who thought that he's going to make a difference to their lives, because quite frankly, Donald Trump has no position whatsoever.
Maybe he didn't believe anything that he said, and maybe that's how you win a
But then that's
a
the
primary.
problem, because on the one hand we're told that Trump's appeal is that he says what he thinks and he says it like it is and that sort of thing.
Oh, but isn't
and then on the other hand we're told that somehow he doesn't really mean it. So which is it? There's something very troubling about that.
No,
That is definitely true. There's something very troubling about Donald Trump, and the fact is that we honestly have no idea what he's going to do.
say something
Republicans, even
entirely
Paul
different.
Ryan, have accepted that Trump has been racist in his language. You don't.
That's not true. He hasn't been racist.
Textbook racism
let,
is the
let
phrase
me
he
tell you,
used.
because of the,
So,
I'm going to say this is
if you're
because
a
of
white
the.
man, you don't get to define what racism is.
Oh, I.
If you did not hear that, let's take a listen again.
You don't.
That's not true. He hasn't been racist.
Textbook racism
let,
is the
let
phrase
me
he
tell you,
used.
because of the. I'm going to say this is
if you're
because
a
of
white
the.
man, you don't get to define what racism is.
Oh, I see. I
You
don't
really
get
If you're a white man, you do not get to define what racism is. Wow. Wow.
So,
So white men have no moral center. Every white man in the entire world is a racist bigot who cannot recognize racism or doesn't realize what racism is, right? Because all white men are just, idiots in some sense. Isn't that a racist statement by itself? I mean, how do you? I just don't get it. I mean, that is a racist statement, right?
You don't get to sit there and say that he hasn't been racist when objectively he has.
Do you know
and it's not about your opinion. The objective things,
Racism and objectivity. Very interesting. Let's go on.
is an objective reality, and Donald Trump has inhabited that reality.
Do you know the false consciousness, which is the theory you're talking about, is a Marxist concept? And I have, in other words, I can't even open my mouth here because I'm a white male.
That is true. Like, all the white men in the world need to shut up and, let the minorities take over, right? In some sense, they should just, shut up about racism because they have no fucking clue what it means. Wow.
Of course, I'm just saying to you that Donald Trump has shown us and has said things that are objectively racist.
No, he
so
has
it's not
not.
about my emotion. But how
What
can you
has he
say that?
said?
If he said to us, for example, that a United States judge, is unable to judge him fairly because he is Mexican, that is racist.
I would-
Objectively
I'm
racist.
sorry,
Nearly
but
at the end of
I looked at Judge Curiel, and he didn't look any other color than my color.
But that's not the
Yeah,
point.
well,
it's
it
about
is
what,
the
it's
point.
about what your candidate
I'm
said.
going to move this on just for a final thought, which is, will Donald Trump govern in the same way that he campaigned?
No.
And that's a
He's
good
not
thing or a
gonna-
bad thing?
It's a proper thing. He showed you how he's going to govern starting the other night when he was dignified, charming, and very focused.
This guy he's drunk the Kool-Aid. He's really on the Donald Trump train. Maybe he's eyeing for a cabinet position, of who knows, but this is the state of affairs and right now in some sense. There's this guy who is absolutely blind to Donald Trump's flaws, and he just completely denies the fact that Donald Trump has been a pretty troubling candidate, and we really do not know what he's going to do, and that is definitely an uncertainty that we have no idea how to deal with. On the other hand, we have this other person who says she's saying that, if you're a white man, you cannot define racism, right? Like, if you're a white man, you need to accept that you are racist and shut the fuck up and let us take over the world. This is where we are right now. This is the state of affairs. That was an objectively racist statement that she made. Objectively racist statement. If anything, it can be objectively racist, that is.
I think it's very sad. I think the standards have been so lowered for Donald Trump that because he manages not to behave like a spoiled child, he needs to be praised. I mean, it seems to, in some ways, this is kind of a crude analogy, but it's kind of like, throwing a little tantrum and letting a little child drive a very sophisticated car. And so to say to us that we have to disregard everything that Donald Trump said and did during his long campaign and judge him just on the one day after he had won the election doesn't make sense.
What did he say that was so...
That's true. We should not. I think that, we should just judge Donald Trump on the way he handles his administration, and so far it has been troubling. And there have been pretty objectively troubling things that he has done that you could have pointed out, but you fail to point them out. You just make ad hominem attacks which are pointless, in my opinion. There you go, folks. Racism 101 and American politics 101, if I may say so. This is where we are at right now, where two people just cannot see eye to each other, and they roll their eyes. Both of them roll their eyes when the other person is talking. This is where we are. Fuck 2016, right?